Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. Today, we're doing things a little bit differently. I've got my friend Ryan Moore joining me. We're talking about how to have a side hustle that doesn't derail your dreams. And so, we're going to talk about both how musicians and artists and freelancers can have side hustles and also executives. So, we're going to run the gamut. And this is my first time having a guest, so hopefully this works well. And let's just get right into it. So I'm going to first switch to show both of us so Ryan can say hello and you can see him. Let's see here. There's Ryan.
Hello. Hey, how's it going? I'm happy to be the guinea pig here on the first guest on the live stream.
Yeah, it looks good and it sounds good. So I've got you and me on the screen at the same time now. Yeah, this is awesome. And so we'll get into your story briefly here in a moment. Let me switch to the screen share. And if you're watching live, feel free to comment. If you're on in the Facebook group or LinkedIn or YouTube, feel free to comment where you're watching from. And if you're watching the recording, also do the same. I'd love to see when you're watching and where you're watching from. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to comment them and I'll try to catch them as we go and we can stop and answer them, or we'll stop at the end and answer your questions. And if you're watching the recording, we'll come back and answer those questions as we see them. So don't hesitate. There are no stupid questions. So let me switch to the screen share. There we go. Nice. Okay, so let's start right away. For those of you who have not joined a live stream or haven't met me before, my name is Spencer List. I'm a holistic financial life planner for music executives. I was a former professional musician, played all the saxophones and woodwinds, and I'm a small talk and holiday cynic, perhaps because I was born 5 minutes before Christmas, who knows. I'm also caffeine free, so if we do get a coffee, I won't get one, but we can still be friends, hopefully. Outside of music, I enjoy woodworking and hockey. I'm an MF Doom superfan and a husband and father to a newborn. I'm currently listening to Them Changes by Thundercat, and there's actually a version, I don't know that they ever released this officially, but there's an Adult Swim concert that they did basically with Ariana Grande and Domi and JD Beck. So if you haven't heard that version, just Google it. It's pretty hilarious and amazing. And my hot take of the day is clapping in a movie theater is unacceptable behavior. So I'll fight to the death with anyone on that, unless the director or actors are in the room with you, I guess. So if you're wondering why a former professional musician is now a financial planner for the music industry, it's because of this checking statement. It's a screenshot that I took almost 10 years. We're getting close to the 10 years ago exactly, about 1 month away, where I came back from a tour in the summer with $67 left to my name. Long story short, I thought I was doing everything I should be doing with my money. I was living my dream, performing at the highest level. Had just come off a bunch of really cool shows with household names that you may or may not have heard of. Yet I didn't really have much to show for it. And so this was a wake-up call for me. And so I started teaching myself financial literacy to improve my own life. It drastically changed my life. Over the next 18 months, I bought my first property, started investing for retirement, increased my income because I improved my relationship with money and my mindset around it. And so I started teaching my music community through a podcast, newsletter, blog, coaching program. I just did it all to try to help other musicians. And then that curiosity of wanting to learn financial literacy at a higher level led me to become a CFP, which we'll talk a little bit about that because Ryan is one as well, certified financial planner. And now I have my own firm, Motif Planning. A quick disclaimer. So all of this is just for educational purposes. This is not personal financial planning advice or tax advice. So make sure you keep that in mind, that the things that we're talking about today may or may not be in your best interest based on your situation, but you should always be considering your own values, goals, priorities, relationship with money, family situation, etc., before implementing anything that we talk about. We're not going to talk too much about taxes or financial planning, but we are going to talk about Ryan's story, a little, maybe mine if it makes sense, and how he's navigating both being a professional musician and a certified financial planner at the same time. So this is Ryan Moore. You can see him in the corner right now. So he is a professional touring drummer and also a certified financial planner professional. So Ryan, if you just want to give us a little bit of background about yourself and then also just dive right into how you're sort of navigating adding this other career, what interested you in it, and then also, you could start dipping into the way you're thinking about sort of having essentially two completely different jobs at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of I almost have the inverse story that Spencer has of I started out as a financial planner. I went to school at the University of Georgia and studied in the financial planning program there, with my sights set on a career in financial planning. And I got my CFP right when I got out of school and worked at a large RIA, which is a registered investment advisory firm, for a number of years. And I was working with professional athletes and doing some really cool stuff. And really, was kind of gigging on the weekends. I grew up as a musician from a family full of musicians, so that's just always kind of been, what I was doing, regardless of what my career aspirations were. And so, a couple of years of working in the financial planning business, and I just started kind of going down a path where I was playing less and less, and I had this kind of moment where I felt, that I needed to reconnect to my music ambitions, and I said yes to a couple of tours, and decided I would at least kind of take a gap between jobs, maybe while I went and did that for a summer. And this was right before COVID, so I had some work as a musician full time for a couple of months, and then everything shut down for a year and a half, 2 years pretty much, and I was kind of clawing back to get some gigs going once things opened back up. And I think it was probably just the disruption of that made me start piecing together a career built out of multiple gigs and multiple jobs. And what started as me driving Lyft in between gigs just to make sure that I met my monthly income needs, grew into me taking some session work when I could find it. I started teaching lessons. I was kind of stretched across what felt like four or five, part-time jobs. These days, I've been in a pretty steady touring gig for the past couple of years, and that keeps me really busy. But then, on top of that, I still needed to make some extra income to be able to, have I just bought a house with my wife recently, and so, having kind of larger ambitions than just getting by every month, kind of motivated me to, look at how I can maximize my skills both in financial planning and in music. So now I'm a what some might call a para planner. So I'm a
Mm-hmm.
assistant financial planner for other larger RIAs, and they'll outsource some of their financial planning work to me. And it's a remote arrangement, and it's on a part time basis. So I do it from the road, just kind of log my hours, and it takes a lot of pressure off of having to say yes to a bunch of gigs and keeping myself busy when I'm back home. I definitely try to take as many steady gigs that I can get, like church gigs, wedding gigs with other bands, and all of that. But as far as just joining as many bands as I could possibly join, like I did when I first kind of started this journey, I'm able to be really selective with the artists that I play with, and it's turned into a much more artistically fulfilling way to go about things.
Yeah, this is perfect. This goes perfectly into like what I put up on the slide here, how a side hustle fosters financial freedom, time, choice, and purpose. Multiple income streams reduce financial pressure, giving you the luxury to be selective about projects and wait for the right opportunities. You have the choice, so when you're not desperate for money, you can make decisions based on creative fulfillment and long-term career growth rather than immediate financial need. And purpose, well chosen side hustles complement your main passion, building skills and connections that enhance rather than distract from your primary goals. Can you tell us a little bit more? Can you expand on how kind of your day to day, your relationship with music and relationship with money has changed as you've decided? And a little bit, we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but if you want to dip into like your identity as well, as a
Yeah.
musician.
Yeah, I think that my identity is, I think those things are very related. So I'll kind of approach them with the same answer in a way. I think that my identity as a musician has really evolved since I started, calling myself a professional musician, so to say. So I think that when I started, I was learning how to approach that the same way that I had learned how to have a day job. I
Mm-hmm.
was making a schedule for myself. I was being really regimented. I was waking up and having tasks that I need to get done, practice, network, learn new material, trying to approach it, like a 9 to 5. I still do that in a way, but I do think that the way that I just try to embody being an artistic person has really helped me identify with what my quote unquote job is these days.
Mm,
I think when I work on music now, it doesn't really feel as much like a job for me. It does feel like it's an itch in a way where it's something that's just something that I do. It's just part of who I am.
hmm
The same way that that I enjoy cooking, and the same way that I enjoy gardening, and it's just something that it's a release for this kind of thing inside me that is gonna need to come out in some form, regardless. And the more that I can build that into my day to day routines, and the more I can associate what my income sources are with that, the more that I can really feel like that is who I am, and it's less that I'm going to work every day. Now, when I do financial planning stuff, I started to kind of think of it as more of a job. That's kind of doing the busy work to fund the living up life playing music.
hmm
Um, but it also, in a way, feels interconnected. I think that it's beneficial to combine is the things that you're working on in life to help themselves accomplish goals rather than distract from each other. So, I used to see it as 5 hours a day doing financial planning is 5 hours less of music that
yeah.
I would be otherwise doing. And I kind of saw myself in this very granular, hourly kind of divided job. And now I just see those things kind of blending together more and more. And while I need to be disciplined to carve out times of the day, I'm much more forgiving with myself of doing things during the day when they feel right and when they make sense to me, when they fit into just the natural flow of my routines at home, anyways.
Yeah,
Um,
I imagine when people talk all the time about having balance in your life, this is a great example where originally you may have thought that one was taking away from the other, but actually they're supporting each other, and you're able to fulfill all the things that you want in your life financially, creatively, and like you said, you like cooking and other things. You can have a fulfilled life and do all the things that you want. You don't just have to just do music or
yeah,
just make money.
yeah, and I think the balance, thing. It's a hard it's hard to figure that out for yourself. What does balance really mean? You can take that as, one day I'm going to do music, one day I'm going to do all the busy work, and trying to carve out time like that. But I've learned to try to approach every single day with balance, every single hour with balance. You know, you can go back and forth between identifying as the financial planner or identifying as
Mm-hmm.
the artist. I don't feel like I have a cutoff quite as much as I used to. And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of that too also helped when I went back to look for work. I was very open with what my ambitions were and what I was currently focused on. So when I was finding this financial planning work that I've built up now, it was very clear that I was going to be doing this work from a tour bus in green rooms. Like I was able to just really be myself in the interview process. And maybe that didn't excite some opportunities, but the ones that I did get out of that, it was all transparent, and they're flexible with my schedule now. It makes things so much less stressful to just try to embody your full self in all aspects of what you're doing.
Right, not trying to hide that. Like it may
Right.
detract from maybe a typical person who's trying to hire someone, but it also can attract somebody who finds what you do interesting. And I think
Yeah.
you it's a great way to stand out. I think a lot of musicians have a lot of transferable skills outside of just using them for their music that a lot of people would love to have on their team. Can you talk a little bit about your situation? You had already been doing financial planning, so it probably felt natural to find something in that world. Can you tell us a little more about your decision? You mentioned it a little bit about how to balance it with your current music life, but how are you thinking about what that side hustle occupation is? And then if you have other examples too, and I'll put on the screen a bunch of different examples, but if you have in your own experience with your own, and then other people that you know that are doing music and then also have side hustles?
Yeah. So I think getting started looking for work for me, it was I needed to figure out what it was I actually wanted to do with my time.
Mm-hmm.
So I viewed my time as the most valuable resource that I was, offering up to someone, giving away from myself. So when I figured out that, the requirement is that it has to be remote so that I can tour the way that I want to, and I don't have to take, time off. I don't have to worry about scheduling. It's just up to me. That was the most important factor that a side hustle needed to have for myself. So if you're somebody who is a touring musician, then I would say it's probably the same thing. You need to find some kind of remote work. And luckily, there's just a lot of those opportunities out there these days. And
Yeah.
so it was natural for me to pick financial planning because that was something, one, I enjoyed doing anyways. Two, I've put a lot of time and resources into developing that side of my career already. But yeah, I think you touched on it that musicians do have a lot of transferable skills. I think one, just the way that we think is can be a really good blending of the right and left brain, so to say.
Yeah.
Um, there's the artistic and kind of the analytical side that you have to have as a session player, as a side man. You have to learn music. You have to be quick thinkers. Uh, Whether that comes out in writing. Some people are great blog writers, article writers. That's a great side hustle. Or I've got a lot of friends who have found work in publishing administration, working for management companies. Doing advance emails to venues for stage plots and etc.
Mm.
So yeah, I think do something that you're interested in, do something that you're good at, do something that will help improve all of the other aspects of your career.
I was just thinking while you were saying that I have a friend who's also a real estate agent. So like there
Yeah,
are
that's a big one. I
potential
have so many.
businesses where you run your own business, and if you can operate sort of during the times that you are maybe not likely to be performing or rehearsing, those could be good options as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my like I mentioned, my wife and I just bought a house, and we bought it from one of our fellow musician
Oh,
friends who
amazing.
is a incredible player, but sells houses to all these other musicians in town.
Oh, that's awesome. And I do know some other musicians who are financial planners, and there are a lot of different businesses. I think if you tap into what you enjoy, you can find something. And as I think for most people, it's probably getting over that identity hurdle, which you touched on.
Yeah,
Um, and so I think once you can get past that and understand that people are not looking at you or judging you in any way, they're really more focused on themselves. I have so many friends who are world class musicians, and they do other things too, and it does not make them any less of a world class musician by any
right.
means. If anything, it allows them to live the life they want to live, which in the end,
Yeah,
what do you want your tombstone to say? What kind of person were you? It doesn't really matter if you didn't have a side hustle or not, or you were or were not able to live the life you want.
yeah,
So I think that if you're able to find something that aligns with you in some way, another point that I've made back when I did the podcast a lot was that in terms of the identity thing, we are not one-dimensional people as humans, right? You probably likely have other interests and things that you might enjoy spending your time, and you just might not have tapped into it because, as you know, if you're doing music, it can be all consuming. But once especially once you reach mastery, as long as you're keeping up with your fundamentals and maintenance of your craft, you should have time for other things in your life. And if not, then we're maybe not living as balanced a life as we'd like to. I'm going to talk about real quick some side hustles and passive income. I get this question a lot from executives. So for those who maybe aren't musicians themselves, but they're in the music industry, I get the question about passive income all the time. So, some potential options there: angel investing, real estate, limited partnerships, making digital products or educational content. And then also some side gigs to consider using your expertise. So you could do industry consulting. I see a ton of people doing that, speaking engagements, guest lecturing, or joining a board or advisory position. So there's a lot of options there for you to tap into the skills that you already have. You just have to make sure that you understand your current employment boundaries and what you can and can't do that may or may not be a conflict. And so, like Ryan mentioned with his situation where he's working for other financial planners, he's very transparent with them right up front. Like, this is sort of how I operate. This is what I do elsewhere. And so I think in most cases it's wise to talk with your employer about that if you do have opportunities that you're wanting to pursue outside of your main full-time job. And honestly, in most cases, they will probably support you, and maybe there is a way for you to have a different kind of relationship with your employer where you might want to go represent them and get paid to do some of these other side gigs. So a lot to think about there, but I do get a lot of questions here. So the next slide, I believe, let's just go to it. I think we're going to talk about some strategies, and I'll just say them out loud because I don't think Ryan can see them, and then we can talk about them. So cash flow strategies. So budget for irregularity. So I put some different budgeting options so we can talk about some of these. The 50/30/20 method, fixed flex, or pay yourself first. A couple different budget options that you can think about with your cash flow. Creating separate accounts, maintaining clear boundaries between your personal and business finances. Expense forecasting, like knowing what your known expenses are for both personal and business. And then I put in here a freedom exercise, like something to ask yourself: how would this additional income change my creative options in the next 6 months? And like for Ryan, a great example was, at some point, his family thought we might want to buy a house. So that was probably an answer to this question. But there's other things too, like, do you want to pursue more creative endeavors? Do you want to feel more fulfilled in your personal life and, increase your standard of living? The answers could vary and will be unique to your own situation. So let's just start with some of the cash flow strategies. Anything you want to talk about, Ryan, on that front?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me was I think I mentioned this earlier, but just starting working backwards on a budget. So coming up with what you know that you have to make per month was really helpful for me, because when I was initially just looking for as much gig work as I could get as a live drummer, I started there and I was like, okay, how much can I realistically make in the amount of gigs that I can play in 1 week, so in 1 month as well. So if it's short of that monthly income need, then I obviously needed to go find something else to fill in that gap. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what initially pushed me to look for teaching arrangements, look for if there was any session work that I could get going. And then, like I said, when I first started, I was driving for Lyft, and so anything that I couldn't fill up on my income needs with my regular musician work, I was having to get out in the car and drive people around. So obviously, when I got back into lining up the financial planning work with this, then I got to leave that part of the gig economy behind. But
Mm-hmm.
it really gave me a lot of clarity on what I actually needed to get out there and make.
Can you talk briefly about how when you first started deciding how to figure out what's going on with your cash flow, what was like the first thing you did to start tracking all these numbers and how you're thinking about
Yes,
it?
the first thing is just tallying up the fixed expenses that I had. So
Mm-hmm.
non-discretionary expenses that I couldn't change, just out of, I couldn't just go out less. So what my rent was, what my utilities were, what groceries would cost me for the month, what my debt payments were. And then once I got that number, that's, kind of the floor of you have to at least reach that point. And then realistically knowing, okay, that means that I probably, can't go out to eat, probably can't go to this Braves game or whatever else on top of that was if I wasn't able to figure out how to fill in those income needs.
So as we wrap up, I'm curious how you're thinking forward. Like, where do you see kind of your multiple careers going? And obviously, as your life continues to change, as we get older, our priorities change. People like want to buy a house like you did, maybe start a family, move. I mean, there's so many different things people want to do in their lives. And as those priorities change, how do you see your situation with music and the side hustle that you've built for yourself? How do you see that evolving over time?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in there's a financial hierarchy of needs. You know, there's very basic fundamental needs that you need to get sorted out with whatever you do for a living. And I had to really restart that pyramid for myself when I did make this leap. So I feel like the past couple of years I've really solidified a good, safe foundation. I've simplified a lot of my work. Which has really now I feel like I've kind of taken a step into the ability to look for more upside type of work. So not just going out and scraping together the dollars that I need to spend now, but looking for opportunities that have some potential for growth in the future and learning how to allocate attention into that while still accomplishing all of the fundamental needs, goals that I have on the other side. And that really just comes down to simplifying as many things in my life as possible. So
Yeah.
when I have steady work and I know that it's coming in, I don't have to spend a bunch of extra time going out and finding more work. That's preferable for me. But yeah, I think the hierarchy of needs has really been a helpful way for me to think about what I look for going forward.
Yeah, it's a good guiding light to make financial decisions and just life decisions. Is there anything else that you would add on this topic in general? Any other thoughts or feelings that you had you wanted to share?
I mean, I would go back to just really trying to emphasize how you think about what you want to spend your days doing. Like
Mm-hmm.
I said, I like to, spend time in the kitchen cooking. I like to write songs. I pick up the guitar and we'll sit down and, try to write some music. I'll practice my drums. Sometimes I'll go and, jam with my friends. Sometimes I'll, go on tour, all of these things. And then those are the things that are important to me, spending time with my wife in our new house, and then letting those be the things that I plan around. I don't try to force anything because I feel like I need to be doing one thing or the other. I find the things that are really valuable for me to be, spending my time on, and then making sure that I can build a career kind of, around the outskirts of those.
Yeah. Well said. You're putting your values and priorities first and letting everything sort of fall into place. I could say the same that has worked for us as well and like a lot of my clients. We focus on that and all the decision making, everything just sort of appears, right? The answer reveals itself when you've done that sort of work. And there are exercises you can do, but even just taking some time to go write on a notepad, like what do you like? What do you like to do in
Oh
life?
yeah.
What are you interested in? What do you not like? And you could do like I don't know if is Benjamin Franklin or whatever the T chart of like what are the positives and negatives of X, Y, or Z, whatever it is you're wanting to think about. Doing some of those simple exercises can really help you answer some of these questions and break through where I know a lot of people are thinking about they have other interests or they want to start a side hustle or maybe even switch careers completely, but they don't know. I've had so many conversations about this exact thing. And what I hear a lot is that they just can't see themselves doing anything else. Like it's not in their mind's eye. They don't have the vision of it. And I would imagine that's mostly because they can't answer those questions yet, or they haven't answered those questions about themselves. And once you do, I do think that the answer does reveal itself. So I think it's really cool. You kind of already had some direction with like what you wanted to do, but then you did have to like actively think about what you want your life to look like for you to then make those decisions knowing why you're like some people might say, "Oh, I'd never drive for Lyft." I just don't want to do that. That sounds horrible. But you knew why you were doing it. So I would imagine your mindset around it and your thought process of taking that action that maybe some people don't want to do was maybe a little bit easier because you you knew like, hey, this probably isn't forever, and B, this is going to lead to this, this, and this to get to where I want to be, to live the life I want to live. Can you tell me a little bit more about was is am I on track there at all?
Yeah, no, yeah, you nailed it. I think it's really about finding purpose for everything, that you do. And because when you do anything with intentionality, there is a purpose. And if you can, the closer you can connect with that and identify the purpose, the easier it is to make those changes. And I do think that I probably seem to some people in my life, like my parents and my family. It might seem like I make changes in my life pretty quickly, but it's a lot of time. With me, with my thoughts, going for walks, writing in notebooks, coming up with plans before I make any of these decisions, because it's the whole know thyself. The more that I can really know what I'm looking for and what I'm wanting and what it takes to get there, the easier it is for me to make kind of seemingly scary leaps in life.
Absolutely. Well said. Okay, I'm going to wrap up and then we'll see if we have any questions. So, really quickly, once you've done the work to figure out what you want your life to look like, whenever you start taking action, you need to understand a few things with your money. And one of those is all the different numbers, the key financial numbers that you might need on a yearly basis. And a lot of these are rules that change every year. So I have a PDF that shows you all of those tax brackets, how much you can contribute to retirement accounts. The list goes on. It's a 2-page PDF. You can download it for free. Just sign up for my newsletter. It'll automatically send it to you. And then I'll also send you some emails like free access to my planning software, some other resources, blogs that I've written that other people have enjoyed or find useful. So feel free to sign up. If you do sign up for the newsletter, just make sure you check your spam or promotions folder and click confirm, or else you won't get any emails. And for anyone who is looking for holistic flat fee advice, only comprehensive financial planning, feel free to go to my website, motiplanning.com, and schedule a call, see if we're a good fit. If we're not, I will send you some recommendations for someone who is. So as we wrap up, let me check to see if we have any questions. Here are the ways you can connect more. Go to my website. You can follow me at Spencer List. I'm mainly on LinkedIn, but I am in other places as well. Feel free to email me and sign up for the newsletter. And let me see if we've got any questions on the live. I don't think so. Let me put Ryan back up here. Anything else that you wanted to say? I appreciate you doing this, Ryan, and I love your story.
Oh, thanks. I really appreciate you having me. It's fun to talk about because it is one of those things where, it's not until it's all happened and you look back and you're just kind of thinking about how crazy some of the, career moves look in retrospect. But, in real time, you're just taking it day by day and just trying to focus on what kind of life you want to live and what the next step in front of you is to get to that point. So,
Yeah, that reminds me of a concept I heard recently that like the time is going to pass regardless of whether you take action or not. So why not take action towards like the life
oh
you want to
yeah.
live? And you're thinking back, like I think back on my last 10 years. I talked about my story of having $67. Now our net worth is like exploded. Life is completely different. I made a little bit more drastic moves, I think, of like actually quitting music about 5 years ago and completely switching. But there's going to be a point in time if you want to start right now, and in 10 years there will be people who took action and improved their lives, people who did not in your circle. And that is a strange feeling to experience, but it will happen. So you can decide if you want your life curve to move in the direction you want it to or not. So hopefully this was helpful for you to start taking action towards the life you want to live. And I think with that, we'll wrap it up. I appreciate you joining, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Spencer. I appreciate it.
All right. You all have a good one at home, and we'll see you next week.